Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, here we are. We're on Charlie's Corner, and John McGee is the guest. And we're a little early, so we don't know if anyone else will or won't show up. I'm hoping that we do get a couple more people who drift in, but we'll see. You know, as the traveling screen printer, you've got a following. Uh, then again, this is the middle of the day for a lot of people. So if nothing else, this will be recorded and on my website. So if anybody wants to catch up on what we talked about, they'll be able to. Anyway, so I was asking about the sustainable plastisol that Avient has come out with. And I know they've come out with, like you mentioned, a Wilflex version, a Rutland version. I don't know if it's under, back when Oscar sent me some, yeah, they still didn't have a name for it. And so I forget how they designated. I think I have it over at Jim's place because that's where I do my testing. And
Hmm.
I forget what designation they gave it. Like, you know, Rutland has the M3. I don't remember if this has got a particular number to it, but
I'm sure it does,
I'm
but I
sure it
mean, it's
does
not like
too.
a part of a series like M3.
Yeah,
It's
they
got
just
its
didn't
part
have.
number.
Yeah, they just didn't have a name for it at that time.
Yeah. So it's not that different because we were able to identify enough bio-derived ingredients to match what we're swapping out. So the behaviors didn't change much. Like the I can't go deep into it, but it's
No,
been a pretty successful build. I mean,
okay,
we're aiming for with any of those products. I think to call it bio-derived, it has to be at least 50% bio-derived. We're above that. So there's a lot of positives there as far as sustainability. Like I mentioned before we started recording, Jeanette Hardy right now is downstairs in the downstairs boardroom speaking to our whole lab, giving them a talk about sustainability, explaining why we do this, why Avient does this, and that Avient's now big enough. Well, I mean, Avient's always been big enough, but Avient's big enough to tell our vendors, kind of impose on them, here's our environmental restrictions. You need to meet these. If you don't meet these, we move on to the next guy. So they've got a lot of weight to throw around. And there's this big initiative with Avient to become more sustainable. Um, all these things just kind of help on Wall Street, as I'm told. Um, so that's the push. There's you kill me that I don't know the pillars right off the top of my head. Actually, I took a picture. There's like four pillars of our sustainability goals. Let's see. It's people, products, planet, and performance. So people, we want to keep people here. We want to create products that are healthier for people. The products themselves have to be more responsibly sourced and more responsibly manufactured. And then planet is obviously the main goal. Anything that's good for the planet is a benefit. And then performance, we don't want to lose performance by going in a more environmentally positive direction. And so that's probably what we deal with the most here at Avient, as far as Ray and myself. When we do alphas or beta trials, we're trying to make sure that we're not losing anything. So I can't go into details of what I'm working on this week, but it's a lot of alpha trials. And my job essentially all this week is to watch what they're doing, watch how it's printed, and compare it against old samples and just what I remember memory wise and say, all right, this is this product X, or this is as good as product X and a little bit better, but it can't be worse. So that's all this week. I'm just going to be evaluating inks.
okay. So I was online checking out Ronald from Belgium, and like, he made a little comment about, you know, M3 and next generation for Rutland might be the M4 system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if this would potentially slide in as quote unquote the M4 system.
That and no, this is official. I'm just kind of speculating on what I know, what I see. M4 is in development right now.
Okay.
M4 will be a flexible cure version of M3. There's a lot of work going into that right now. The bio-derived aspect of it, I don't think will be combined with it. I think what we'll probably do is come up with a bio-derived base for like our PC-based inks that you can just add
Okay.
the PC to those bases. Um, but I don't think one of the specific goals for M4 is to look for bio-derived ingredients. I think it's as these products prove themselves, then they just work themselves into the standard products over time. But I think a lot of our issues are just waiting for these new suppliers with that have bio-based pigments, bio-based raw materials that we need to be able to scale up to what our demand is.
Yeah.
It's nice that we can find somebody that has a bio-derived red pigment somewhere in the world, but they may be a small little mom and pop company, and we're a big worldwide company that needs to order in mass, in large quantities.
So, quick question on the union side, are they still making union full color process inks?
It's not under the union label. It's under the Avient Specialty Inks side.
Okay,
So all the
but it
special
is the
effects moved over to
same,
ASI.
but it is the same as what it was or
I
not?
feel like it's a bit different. It's good. I feel like the chemistry is leans more Wilflex than Union. So I'm always pushing to try to bring back. In fact, last night in a conversation, I was pushing to bring back some True Tone because, as you
Okay.
and I know, I think I know where
Uh,
you're going. Like the triple strength True Tone is amazing, but one of the issues that we have is I was just evaluating all our special effects that I've talked about on traveling screen printer to see if there's any uptick in sales or a downward trend in complaints, and everything's up except for CMYK. CMYK is pitiful, and I talk about CMYK on traveling screen printer a lot, but it's the only thing that I've talked about on traveling screen printer that hasn't gone up in sales.
yeah, but CMYK reality, most screen printers don't know how to use CMYK.
And that's exactly that was the first thing that Ray said last night.
Okay. And so will sales be up on it? They can't. Everybody has definitely moved further over to uh, simulated process. And
Mm-hmm.
so CMYK is what they play with, but simulated process or truly vector is what they do more of than anything else. And I think you still have to hold on to CMYK just because it's an area, even though it doesn't have an uptick, you do have competitors who are going to love if you drop out of CMYK because then they'll push it even that much harder. The reality is the most complex part of screen printing is CMYK. No question about it. You do anything differently from one run to the next, and you have a totally different color range.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely creates problems because most screen printers don't have control over their processes. You
And
know,
most screen printers don't know what they don't know, and that's the biggest issue I'm coming up against now. So I've made the comment that we screen print with training wheels now. We've got a lot of tools that fix a lot of things that we used to know how to uh, eliminate before we went to press. Now we just go to press, add a smoothing screen, add whatever product, add whatever add on to the press to fix something. CMYK, as you know, I mean, you gave me that book from Joe Clark. Like it's a science. It's not just something you just slap together in your garage. Um,
no, you
it's
slap
not
it
for your.
together. Yeah, you slap it together the first time and it comes out perfect, and you're thinking, "Oh, I got this mastered," and then the next 10 jobs you're dying on,
Yep.
just because um, it is that complex, as it should be. It's always been the way to gauge how good a printer you really are, I think. And if you can nail down, I mean, look at Andy Anderson's four color process stuff. It's amazing. I mean, I have shirts that are separated by 10 years that look like they were printed one and two. And part of it is because he is the printer that he is, and his documentation was beyond belief. And his ability to hold uh, halftones was incredible, considering that he wasn't really, I mean, he had pretty good equipment. He wasn't doing inkjet at the time. He definitely had I don't know if he had, I don't know if, having been to his place, I can't remember if he had an image setter, but I don't think so. He had, uh,
It came up in conversation. I think he did. I
and
was
he may
talking to him
have,
on Facebook. Yeah.
I mean, it's been quite a few years since I've been there. And when I was there, I didn't necessarily pay as much attention as I should have. Although I did have him shoot a set of screens for me, and while I was there, and his washout methods were definitely a little uh, gentler than mine. I used to use a high pressure washer. When he did his four color process stuff, he just used a standard garden hose,
Mm-hmm.
and this way he didn't blow out any of his. Because if you looked at his um, calibration bar, he started at 3%, where mine started at 5. And the reason mine started at 5 is I was trying to be realistic about what screen printers could hold. And, the number of screen printers that could hold a 3% dot uh, were and still are so few that having it there, it would drive them crazy because they're not holding it. So rather than driving him crazy, started at 5. But he would hold 3% dots. Um, and certainly whoever worked for him and learned how to print the way he did always moved on to great things. Just because, he was the guy who would get on press with them and work with them. But he was definitely the guy who did a lot of the washout in the screen room, which I think is one of the areas that a lot of printers lose out on. They assign someone to handle the screen room. The reality is, you don't have a great person in the screen room, you're never going to have a great print. Pretty
Yeah.
simple.
I would never say I was a terrific CMYK printer. I mean, mediocre at best. But I developed those screens myself. I didn't trust our guy. You probably remember Donnie, our guy in the screen room. When I
I
was
remember your screen room well.
when I was developing those screens, I would have two wet sponges, and I would just sponge it back and forth, pushing water back and forth, trying to keep all those dots so they wouldn't release.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I know you had a question for John about color matching.
Yeah, so my question is what system's going on with Avient right now? I'm having more issues trying to match PMS codes with the what is it, the M3 system or the what's it called? The IMS 3.0. I'm
Mhm.
having mixing issues where the colors are not coming out right. I'm getting ready to go print a job. I'm coming to the back side of the print. I just need to get, 300 extra grams out of a job, and I'm getting and the colors are, I mean, significant shade differences. There are ones coming out like the one I sent you the email on that you sent me directly to
Oh, was
Avient.
that you? Sorry, I didn't even read the names. I go
No,
straight through them
no,
as
you're
fast as I
good.
can.
So I'm just trying to see, is there a better system or are they working through that? It just seems like I'm not able to do the Pantone matching I was previously, since the changeover to the IMS or the
So
IMS 3.0.
I have to ask you a couple questions. What I'm seeing, so M3, C3 is probably our most accurate on the Rutland side. M3 is right there. They both have the longest history on the Rutland side for building up formulas. That usually makes the algorithm more and more accurate. But what I'm seeing, I don't know from a conversation yet, but what I'm seeing is I just had a conversation with the color department today because they're like, the color department had been trucking along for years, not having issues, just doing the matches of colors that we didn't have the Pantones for in the software. But now it's a bunch every day. And so they're like, what's going on? Why are we getting all these weird numbers we never got before? Look at your Instagram or, when you're going through your Instagram, if you're looking at screen print stuff, look how many like little devices and apps there are to just identify colors and tell you what the Pantone is. Well, that's giving us a bunch of colors that nobody's ever asked for before. Like there's like 8,000 Pantones, I think. Normally there was like a core of about like 500 colors that most people used over and over again. Now that you've got everybody that calls himself a graphic designer because they've got a computer, and a Pantone book are just sticking it on a whatever and choosing a Pantone. And it's something we've never picked before. And we don't know what kind of light they're looking at it through because we're going to match all our Pantones under a D64 light box. So if your person's using a little add-on to their app through their phone, I don't know what kind of light source that is that's projecting onto the color to read that. So that could be one part of it. As far as going from the RGCC software to the IMS 3.0, it's the same algorithm. All the information there is the same. But if you saw a significant problem beyond that, that would be something that, contact me directly. Let me know what you're seeing and chase that down to see if it's something beyond the norm that's unusual.
Well, so like one of the things I had is this is what I sent you the text back, oh God, but a couple months ago, and this is one of the jobs I'm trying to finalize, is it was Pantone 7507C. It's one I had back from 2000, I don't know, probably 2019, 2020, where we had that on the old RG system or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to go get it I couldn't find the sheet when I was getting ready to do the print, and it changed it. But the mix it's doing is it called for the mix opaque colors changed on the the formulas, because like it went from trying to see the exact difference on this was the mix opaque. It was the yellow GS, and then all the stuff on the new one for the new system is calling for the mix opaque yellow RS. And if it wasn't for we just dumb luck, we came across the old RS sheet that showed that it's causing that. And I'm starting to see, I'm questioning now on the accuracy. So a lot of the colors I'm coming through, especially reds. Reds are my nightmare. I hate reds.
Mhm.
They're shades off where it's ended up being more orange or against that too heavy magenta that's coming out on the mixes, and it's not coming close to where what I'm trying to look at versus my Pantone book, that I've had for years. It's not even, really close to it. I'm either one way or the other. I'm either way too orange or I end up being, way too magenta. So I was just saying if there's a more accurate system where I can change that over, because a lot of the customers I'm dealing with now seems like they're going more Pantone specific on what they're doing.
So there's a couple things that I heard there. I mean, one, you always want to have a newer Pantone book. We say with the last 2 years, and Pantone books aren't perfect. Charlie taught me that.
Yeah.
Showed me how they weren't. But here's how the IMS systems work, whether it's RGCC or our system. We have to mix and match 200 colors per year for Pantone per system, per color matching system for them to accredit each one. And then throughout the year, we end up hand mixing another several hundred as they come through. Whatever we don't mix, an algorithm fills that through. So the more mixed Pantones we put in there, the more accurate the algorithm becomes. Or if you say this 321 doesn't look right, and we look at an algorithm created that, then we create one by hand, and then it gets updated in the IMS. So what may be happening is you're seeing an updated version where red shade hit tone better than the green shade, white or yellow, whatever it is. That's probably what you're seeing. And I know that's not a great answer, because that means, well, how do I make the old color? And as far as I know, we don't have a true answer for that now. I know a lot of people printed off a PDF years ago, which we won't provide anymore because, as we correct the system, it's going to become more accurate. That PDF's going to become more inaccurate. But if you're going back to print a job that was already done a couple years ago, it might be handy for you. But the key answer here is whenever you find a Pantone that doesn't come out correctly, send that Pantone and make sure you specify which color system it was to askspecialtyinks@avient.com. And that goes to the color department. They'll hand mix that and match it and send it back to you, usually that day. Keep in mind, you and I, we live in Colorado. We're 2 hours ahead of Kennesaw here. So at 3:00 your time, they're done for the day. You want to try to get in before 2:00 our time in Colorado. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, they're all updated. It used to be every Friday, end of day, all the new colors that are made throughout the week where somebody may have complained about a color and we fixed it. Those are updated on Friday. Now they're updated every day, dependent on its color system. Most of the color systems are updated daily.
Okay.
So it's trying to get everything to a closer level of perfection, keeping in mind like 10, 15 years ago, we didn't care that much. I mean, the message was, it's not that we didn't care that much, but the message was Pantone gets you close. This is the system to get you close to that shade. It's up to your color department to get it dead on. So again, backtracking, keeping in mind, before we had color matching systems and people were just doing things by eye, we're making these color matching systems to make their job easier. The industry message is still, you need a person who understands color, who isn't colorblind, mixing your inks there, that understands how to mix inks together, checking those, and then checking against a Pantone. And if there's any issues, get back to us, and we're here to help you get the rest of the way across the finish line.
Excellent. No, I just wasn't sure if it's one of those things where do I need to jump to whatever the new mixing system is for Avient, or just keep with I think I'm using the mix opaque system, and I think I mix opaque, and then I have that test stuff that came out from Midwest when they shipped it out originally. They sent out the Unimatch system, which
okay, yeah.
I really don't I don't use it a whole lot, and I can't even find the Unimatch stuff on the IMS anymore.
We may have to add it. I just had somebody that was having an issue where it was only pulling, they were in Unimatch, but it's pulling up max opaque issues. So if you have that issue, again, email us at askspecialtyinks@avient.com and let us fix that. I mean, it happens fast. When that email comes in, there's 7 people that's copied on it. The product manager for Union will see that and he'll look at it. I know he's looking at things like to do with that right now. But as far as color systems, on Rutland, C3 and M3 are highly accurate. I mean, if I would dare to say, in my opinion, I'm not going to say this company message, but the highest accuracy color systems we have are the Wilflex equalizer system and the Rutland C3 system. And then you go beyond that. MX is next one up. That's their finished ink on Wilflex, is very highly accurate. M3 would be the similar product to that. They perform the M3 and MX are finished colors you mix together like your MaGee system. So now that you know those are the Rutland C3, M3, and then Wilflex equalizer are your most accurate systems. Your Union MaGee system is one of your least accurate systems because it's such a highly opaque system that's meant to be mechanically versatile. So when you're looking at your Pantone deck, those bottom two colors closest to the hinge, it's going to be really hard to hit those. I don't usually try, but if you're using mix opaque, you're generally using mix opaque for a reason. For me, it's to get rid of an underbase at times. So if I'm printing simulated spot process and I've got a lot of like small dots in the periphery of the image, I don't have high opacity, maybe it's muted, then I'll drop the underbase in most of the area and then print MaGee but unreduced. So keep in mind, max opaque and mix opaque, if you're going to print them on an underbase or a light colored garment, you reduce them 1-to-1. It's a triple opacity system. It's the only one out there like that. If you want to print directly to a black garment and just flash the color, as many times as you need to get opacity, that's what max opaque and mix opaque were designed to do. They were designed right after the flash dryer came out, became a tool that we could use, allowing us to print white first, stabilize that, and then print colors on top of that. If you didn't want to print that white base screen, say in early 80s, where you charge for everything, it costs you a lot more to set up a job, or just to register one more screen, it'd be easier just to hit white flash white, blue flash blue, green flash green, and just drop out the underbase. Keep in mind that mid 80s, early 80s, there was a lot more manual printers that were automatic printers. So mix opaque and max opaque were amazing then, but we keep it around, for printers like myself because it's so mechanically versatile. So just say like a regular max opaque red out of the bucket, we're ready to print it onto a black garment, print flash print until it's the red that you want. If we're going to print on an underbase light garment, we extend it 1-to-1 with a soft base extender. Really, almost any extender will work. And then now you have a medium opacity ink that's still a higher opacity. But on top of that, if you take your red out of the bucket and mix it 1-to-1 with plastic charge, you've hybridated into a water base. Now you add ZFS to the plastic charge and you've hybridated into a discharge. So now instead of buying a whole water base system or a discharge system, take your existing max opaque inks, just add it to plastic charge, add your 6% ZFS, and now you have a hybrid system that it's water-based and plastisol. Now on top of that, let's say a good old Charlie trick that Charlie taught me years and years ago, you're going to print red foil. Well, foil sometimes it'll degrade off over time. So you can print red max opaque and then adhere your foil to that because the red's so sticky, it works as a foil glue too. So a cool story, and I hope I haven't told this story before. I used to own a skate shop, and a skate shop, you sell skateboards, but you're really a shoe store. You sell expensive skate shoes, and skateboarders go through shoes like a pair a month, so they keep me in business. But there was a special edition Eric Costin shoe, and if you've ever seen videos with this guy driving around LA yelling at people, do a kickflip, and it's not Tony Hawk, it's Eric Costin. Eric Costin's shoe was all blue, and the toe cap was what they call like a blue toe dip. So the toe cap was blue, but as you wore it off, there was silver underneath. So I made a companion shirt with our shop logo, printed blue max opaque, and then undercured it a little bit, and then heat pressed the silver foil to it so that as it wore down, the silver foil would come off and show up blue, and then the shoes doing the opposite. I sold more of the shirts than I sold shoes, obviously, but it was a cool effect. I'm making crappy shirts. I'm doing crappy prints. I'm making them fail on purpose. But skateboarders loved it because, what's the first thing a skateboarder does when he buys a new skateboard? He scuffs it up so it looks like he's already been skating, and he's hard ass. Any younger skateboarder, you just constantly see them walk around the park scraping their board on stuff, even as they're talking, looking like they skated more than they did. So it allowed me to create a product that showed what your experience was, or allude to what your experience was in the sport, and the shoe allows you to do the same thing. So it was a win-win.
Okay,
nobody's upset their shirts aren't secured.
No, that's perfect.
So I have a quick question on the color matching system. Do they recommend what light source you should be looking at? Because
D65.
So back in my day, I owned a Macbeth light cabinet, so I could switch from daylight to fluorescent light to etc. And I have to admit, I haven't looked at the color matching system software, but they're recommending a particular light source, or
we match on the D65 light source. So if you have anything that's a corrected daylight light source, it should work.
Okay.
And then I've seen Pantone.
That's one of those things that. Huh?
I was just going to say, I've seen those Pantone boxes, the light boxes like we have in the lab.
Right. They make
sold
a
these
small
pretty cheap
version
lately.
also. Macbeth makes a small version.
Okay.
It's still expensive, but it's not one of these monstrous things that you would have where you are. And
Yeah.
you had a dial so that you could click to the different type of lighting from daylight to fluorescent light to incandescent light, etc. And if you had one, you could see how your color shifted. And that was always one of the things back in my day was asking a customer, where is this going? Is this going into a retail store? And if it is, what kind of lighting do they have? Because based on that, we would make our adjustments so that we could come closer to color matching. And this is before everybody got into very sophisticated color matching systems, but we would be able to match so that it would look appropriate in that particular environment. And I don't think that there's enough emphasis in today's world on knowing what kind of light source your customer is going to be viewing. So you could match it perfectly for where you are, and they're looking at it under a different light condition, saying the colors are all off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, if you were to, when I had the shop I was at when I met you, or the location I was at when I met you, that shopping plaza, if you were to be in that same shopping plaza with another business, you would have seen me walk out in the parking lot 5 to 6 times a day at least,
Right.
just checking under the sunlight. We had 65-watt daylight bulbs to check under, but still,
It's not the
if
same
it's sunny
as
outside, I want to take a look.
Yeah, it's not the same as going outside. I did plenty of that also, and I would recommend that to my customers, saying, look, when you check these colors, go out into the sun and take a look at it. Because at your desk, it could be totally off, but it's really not.
I wish I knew the date, but on Traveling Screen Printer on my Instagram, I've got a video I posted in the past, probably a month or so, where there's that last page on the Pantone deck where it shows like a brown gold, that little metamerism shift card. And I just walk around this one showroom with those different light sources, and you watch it it looks identical, then it shifts, and you just watch it changing light source to light source. And I think it makes a good point. I show people that back page pretty often. If I see it still on their Pantone deck, I show them what it is and explain what it's for.
Yeah, it almost pays if you're going to do color matching to let a customer know that the light source that you're using is X and what are they going to view it in. And of course, unless you own a light box, you're not going to be able to make adjustments, or you recommend that they look at the light out in the sun so that they get a true visual of what you're trying to do.
Sure.
Where do you see the sun? Because the sun at 8 in the morning and the sun at 1 o'clock and the sun at 6 o'clock are not all 65,000.
I love the sun at midnight because then it's always consistent.
See?
I've had a conversation with somebody.
You finally got up the stairs, I noticed. I mean, it took you a little while there.
My office crashed at 12:55, 5 minutes before the show, and 2 of my computers I can't get to work, can't get to the internet in my office, so I'm in a little bit of a panic.
Well, you don't look like you're breaking into a sweat yet, but I'm sure you will later on.
I'm not happy.
Well,
but listening, I'm listening.
Okay, well, we've got you on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I mean, it's always wonderful to have Richard on.
Richard said something that made me think of a conversation I had a couple years back, and I wish I could remember the context, but I was arguing with somebody that sunlight's different parts of the country. Because when I was screen printing in San Diego, it seemed like the sun's bluer, maybe reflecting off the ocean. In Colorado, I feel like it's a whiter sunlight. And when you go down the south, sunlight seems more yellow to me. It may be all in my head, but I'm convinced in this John science that there must be some truth to it.
John science written down for it so we can judge it.
It could even be possible that the time of the year, the sun at the time of the year,
absolutely
impact as it does on our seasons. I think we're getting a little too crazy at that point.
Yeah, just got to get a Pantone box. It's killing me because there's a Pantone box on the loading dock right now that's just any one of us can take it. And I would have loved to have just come across a free Pantone box, 15 years ago. That would have been a game changer.
So Jim said if you can put his name on it and send it to him, he'll pick up the cost of freight.
Yeah.
Put an Avient border up here so everybody can see when we're on these shows and stuff like that for y'all.
So yeah, I got to see if anybody has dibs.
I
If it would
always
have fit my
thought,
luggage, I would have taken it 3 months ago.
my opinion was if you owned a screen print shop and you had automatics, you should have all the right tools, especially a Macbeth color box. And just because once you get into automatics, you're going to get that many more customers that are looking for longer runs, but are getting very specific on Pantone colors. And so having a box makes a lot of sense. Have they mixed up the new Pantone color, which was that putrid
Yeah, I heard about that.
beige?
I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
really beige? Oh, sorry,
I'll
they
have
don't
to
call it
ask.
beige. I think they call it mocha.
I'll have to ask. They probably did just for the heck of it, but it hadn't come up. I feel like it would have been a conversation topic as soon as I got in the door
Who the
yesterday.
hell wants beige anyway? Color match. Oh, yes, my latte. I need my latte color to be perfect.
My physical therapist.
I need it to be a mocha.
That's the example.
It seems to be the main house color though across Colorado. Is the first thing I noticed decades ago. Like beige is probably the most common, or at least the beige palette is probably the most common house color in Colorado.
Yeah, it's because they keep mixing stuff together and then everything goes to beige. So it's like, oh, well, we got all this beige. May as well make something with it.
Yep. Yep. No, I think things are going to get harder color matching wise, because of the apps that I mentioned before. But think back, like I guess was it late '90s, mid '90s, where all of a sudden everybody had Photoshop and Illustrator, so everybody's cousin or niece was all of a sudden a graphic designer without going to school or understanding logo design. It's that even worse now, because you've got AI that will create logos for you, but the person who's selling it to you doesn't understand why it's a good logo or what rules it should have stayed within. And then they're picking just random colors, with these new apps. So it's just, I mean, I can't complain too much because if that's the color you want, it's our job to make a color match close to that and get you in the right neighborhood. So that's what we'll continue to do. But the workload has gone up for our color department. If you hear that we add some people in the color department, I would be 0% shocked. That's a lot of work.
So moving on to another question. I know my favorite special effect ink was blister base. And I spoke to Beth about it 2 years ago. And instead they have this cork base, which quite honestly, my opinion is not very high as far as the cork base goes. Why would they kill off a base that had more versatility than any of the others? I know
they just didn't have the numbers. Yeah,
sales wouldn't be there. You can't. Are you going to convince me that cork base is selling well versus what blister base did?
I don't know, but cork base people don't usually normally use it straight. They're adding structure base and doing weird stuff with it. So I don't know for a fact, but I think like Milos in Amsterdam, Mad Specials, I think he's mixing structure and cork base to get his weird texture effects. But it's funny, whenever blister base comes up, nobody hears his blister base. They say Charlie's blister base. So Jake will, be me, Jake,
well,
and Beth.
Where the hell is it then?
how's Charlie's blister base doing this week?
To me, that was such a versatile product because you kept it low and it had a puff look with a little bit of shine. You wanted it to blow up, you ran it back through the dryer, or you ran a slightly slower dryer and you got it to blow up. You could have it underneath, you could have it on top. You could add color to it, or you could just use it straight out of the can as is and print over it. To me, more than any of the other special effects, to me, that was the king. Just because you couldn't.
I'm going to show you guys something cool because there's nobody up here, so I probably won't run anybody. But keep in mind, a few years back, anything that puffed, any of those products had to be completely reformulated because they didn't match Avient's restricted substance list. And so our restricted substance list is based on an international standard. So the US is a bit lower than that. We could produce that product and sell it here. We couldn't sell it abroad. But look at this. I was just noticing this when I was getting ready. These are old print samples. I mean, this is all faded here, but most all these, there's a couple blister base prints here. That one looks like one. And then there's another one here where these are just all old effects. That's got to be blister base. I mean, you can't read what it says. But we had all these dimensional expanding special effects not too long ago. But after reformulation, I just don't think cork base made it in popularity, for us to reformulate it and produce it, and not when we had cork base.
Well,
so I hope that helps. It's not that I don't have an official answer for you, but that's just logic wise. I think it probably came down to we probably weren't able to find a component that would meet RSL for blister base, and then cork base kind of filled that space. I would imagine if Ray Smith was here right now, he probably did the testing back then, and cork base is probably a version of blister base that meets RSL.
well, I know I'm doing a seminar on special effect inks in Long Beach, and I'd love to do a workshop, but it makes no sense because there just isn't enough that you could do in a workshop environment that would really get somebody excited, because you'd have to have too many different types of screens in terms of detail, et cetera. And then trying to work with a major size group on special effect, unless you got into a group that was already experienced to some extent, it wouldn't make any sense to do that. So I do it on the seminar, showing a lot of the shirts that you got from me, with the disclaimer that, yep, you can see this, but you can't do this because you can't get the ink. And if you do have the ink, it's worth a fortune. But that's kind of like, I also have some burnout, I think, in my house. And it's another ink that you just can't get. And I don't think enough people understood what you could do with it to enhance a product. I don't know. There are some things that I understand that you have to move on from. And then there are other things that are kind of like, yeah, I know it's not a great moneymaker, but it's a great product for promoting a label. And which I think Avient is one of those companies where they keep wanting their name pushed out there. Give us something to work with on that level where, yeah, I know it's not going to make you a ton of money, but at the same time, it'll get your name out because nobody else is doing anything like it.
Mm-hmm. I think Ray and I were talking about this morning. I'm trying to think of which special effect it was. But it was something that's just not in production right now. And the answer was the same as it always is, that the sales were low. And then Ray said, but did we promote it? And I'm usually the one that always says that, but do we ever promote it? Do we ever tell people we had it? I mean, just like Plastic Charge sales are really low right now, but it's a fantastic product. It used to be everybody got their feet wet with water-based on Plastic Charge. When was the last time we promoted it? It was probably me by myself, 6-7 years ago when I was in sales. So we have this great catalog of products that I think we're going to probably cycle back around and push a lot of promotion under. But right now, the main focus is the sustainable products, and we've got to get those out quickly. We're always guided by the really big brands. So if there's a big change in ink, it's usually driven by like a Nike type customer, somebody at that level. But we were just doing that environmental sustainability meeting just a while ago, and the labels they show over here, we got Nike, Adidas, Coca-Cola, Target, Disney, Fanatics, Columbia, Under Armour, Kohl's, TJ Maxx, Levi's, and North Face. These are all partners of ours that have statements that they are going towards an environmental sustainability goal that they're trying to reach, and we're a part of that. So that's something we work directly with. So for instance, let's say I was doing some alpha testing on a product at maybe Lon Winter's place not too long ago that was one of these environmental products. If a company like Levi's has been asking for this, they get first go to look at it, and then it'll go to the rest of the market. So at this point, a lot of these companies have integrated some of these products into their product lines, and the general screen print public is just now kind of becoming more aware of them. And I hope we'll try them out soon.
So I have to speak to Ed Brannigan and to Louis Fish and tell them that they need to ask for blister base.
Blister base.
I mean,
can I be at the table behind you when you do that?
No.
And can Ed be about 4 or 5 beers in first?
Yeah, I haven't worked with Louis in a long, long time. I need to see. I'm hoping that he comes out to the show in January, but we'll see. But I know Ed will be there.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I know he was just in Istanbul, so he must have been working with Samir, who probably came out with the most innovative special effect, period. I don't know anybody else who's come up with any of the things that when he was with ETF, that ETF came out with and just blew everyone away. I
In
don't
your
know.
book, you've got a good article on Samir, right?
Huh?
You've
Oh,
got a
yeah.
good article on Samir, but
Oh,
yeah, because I was just
absolutely.
going through some stuff a couple days ago, and I came across that article. Like, oh, I got to bookmark that and read it later.
Yeah. I actually have that book being put into print form now. So I'm
Cool.
just waiting for my guy, Prem in India, to finish putting it together so that I can actually have it printed. But yeah, Samir has a whole thing in there and a bunch of looks. And I mean, he did some things that were just insane, uh, totally unusable as far as wearing. But, you know, their big thing was to show what they could do in the way of crazy stuff. And that's what got them a lot of business because the idea was if you could do that, you could certainly do what we needed. And they were probably, as far as a production shop, the fastest production shop I've ever worked with. I mean, they literally made their own shirts and they could only make 35,000 in a day. And that's what they knocked out in a day. 8 automatics, 35,000 shirts. They averaged out at 550 an hour when they were busy. And that included setup and breakdown because they put in, Samir being an engineer, put in systems that were just fine tuned all the time. If he could gain one more shirt an hour, he would go after it. If he could do something that was um, off the charts, he would go for it. But you know, and they were great up until the divorce, and then things fell apart. And that's why he has his own shop now.
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing any of that type of work. He's actually doing more contract printing than anything else. But
Yeah, our Magna sales rep, Teresa, she was just there. I think she just got back from Istanbul maybe a week or so ago, but she was just there and sent me a nice photo and a video from Samir. Actually, that I think was the trip before last, but she was out with him last time. I'm jealous. She has the best region. Can you
yeah,
imagine just working in Turkey over and over again?
well, I think between Samir's shop and the other shop that I worked with, Mpash, who did some pretty crazy stuff as well. Um, those two shops probably did more special effects and more crazy special effects than any other shop that I've seen. But that was just to get business. That had nothing to do with production. It had strictly to do with this is what we can produce, and so whatever you want, we guarantee you we can do it.
Very cool.
Yeah. In any event, moving on. Um, is Avient going to try and push more under the Avient label versus let's say Rutland, Wilflex, QCM?
People have been, I've had that question for years now, and there's not been, so we do, like a quarterly town hall, for the inks business. Tito, our boss, who tells us how we're doing, what, where we're at. And that is still, we get the questions come to the town hall, and there's still no push for that yet. The only thing that we did was move the special effects to ASI. There's too many passions and enough differences between each brand to try to combine them. I mean, you can never combine Max Opaque into something else. There's probably some Coke and Pepsis from certain products that you could, probably consolidate, but there's still such an emotional tie to each brand. There's people that'll say they hate Wilflex up and down and they won't touch it, but they'll only print with Rutland.
Yeah.
There's other people like Wilflex invented plastisol ink. I'm only going to go with Plastis or Wilflex. They both turn out great prints. And one of the funny truths behind this, and it's probably the same in every industry, it's kind of an inbred industry. We've had some people have gone back and forth between Wilflex and Rutland before we were all under one roof. So there's always been a little bit of a cross pollination of ideas, but it would be easier. It would be easier for us to consolidate everything under Avient and just make that Avient inks. But it's not what the customers want. It's definitely not what the dealers want, and I don't want it in the end. I want to still be able to think, all right, Max Opaque does this. The ultra soft inks do this. This product from Wilflex works well here. It's easier to keep straight in your mind when they are different brands, I think. And I think that's one of the things that Avient recognizes.
Well, I know, back when I was still printing and even when I was selling, I was a Rutland guy, really didn't like Wilflex. And the two of them were always clashing.
Mm-hmm.
And so from an emotional side, would I want Wilflex? No, just because I was a Rutland guy. Nothing against Wilflex. I mean, I think they put out a great ink now. Back in the day, I thought Rutland was far superior to Wilflex in terms of long runs and not having buildup. But
Right.
those are things that obviously are not much of a factor right now. I was just curious to see if because I know Avient came out with a number of things under the Avient label versus under Wilflex, Rutland, QCM, Print Top, etc. Just a question on my side, nothing else.
I mean, it's one of my jobs is to help delineate those things. So one of the projects I'm working on, the ask was from chemistry. So if chemistry comes up with a brand new product nobody ever asked for. So typically, historically, any new product that we created was by request from somebody. Somebody said, hey, can you make something that does this? We make it, and whoever brand they ask that through, that becomes that brand's product. But what if, because now we have, ever since COVID, we have these innovations challenges. So they divide us up into teams and we come up with different ideas. So the first time I came up with 67 ideas, and we acted on the biorenewable ink and a few other products. But nobody asked for those previous. So that's why we have that bio-derived ink, both on the Rutland side and the Wilflex side, because it wasn't requested by a certain brand. It was just something that we developed and we didn't know where to put it. So this project I'm working on kind of delineates, all right, if the characteristics of the ink are X, Y, and Z, that belongs in Union. If it's A, B, and C, that belongs in Wilflex. Wilflex, Union, and QCM are more focused on the thixotropic behaviors of the ink, where Rutland's the consistency of the body of the ink is meant to stay the same throughout the print run. It's not meant to shear down as much as a Wilflex or Union ink, and it's not meant to body up as much. So they have their places. It's nice that they are specialized tools and not just simply the same product in different buckets and different labels.
So is Magna going to how much longer does NASDAR have the
exclusive
on Magna?
I don't know exactly. It just came up again last night. I mean, they're not losing it anytime soon. It is we're legally bound that they are our only distributor here, and then they sub-distribute through GSG, I believe. I'm not sure what the.
I mean, you have a couple of
smaller
smaller distributors that were Magna distributors that still are, but very few. And I mean, back when I played with it, which is going back a long, long time, I was not in love. But I know over the years, they've definitely changed their formulations and changed a lot of what they do. I was more involved with trying to play with their dischargings, and it didn't discharge the way I wanted it to, versus using ZFS.
Right, yeah.
And I haven't played with it in many years, so I don't know how it responds now in terms of the type of looks that I was wanting to get. But I was just curious if Magna was going to finally hit the general market, but obviously that doesn't seem to be the case. And of course, NASDAR is big enough where they can flex their muscles a bit.
Sure. And I don't know this is true. I just suspect this. I want to say I think the relationship with Magna way back when started because of NASDAR. I think NASDAR opened that relationship to us. But I don't know that as a fact. It just seems like when we look back at everybody that knows each other, they all seem to go back to this one point in time with NASDAR.
For a while,
fantastic inks.
For a while, Rob Coleman and Tom were, walking the shows together. I can't remember how many years ago. At least 5, 6, 7 years ago. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we just did a clinic here 3 weeks ago where the Magna team presented the inks to us. Right. Formerly, we'd always had some interaction between them, and we'll support Magna inks also in a Magna account. But it was fun. It was more than one type of discharge. We had the low odor discharge and the non-ZFS discharge. They all perform really well for us. But I mean, again, our lab is perfect. Our Brenda, who runs the presses down there, she calls it Cadillac Country because it's not like a real shop. There's no real deadlines. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. Nothing's too dirty. We keep everything spotless. But really interesting chemistries with those. But I have heard that I've heard the low odor doesn't perform as well as the ZFS discharge, but I've not seen it side by side, like enough difference to say, yeah, one's better than the other. But the Magna team they're fantastic. And Melvin Hall, I mean, that guy's been in screen printing forever. Just standing next to him, you're going to learn new stuff. It was just fantastic to work with them one-on-one. I hope we do more and more of that going forward.
Richard has been in screen printing forever.
Ah,
Well, everybody
not
knows
as long
that.
as you. Not as long as you, old man.
I was just curious about Magda. That's all. It's got to literally be 15 years or so since I played with it. And so, and even just trying to get a hold of it is kind of like, nah, don't even bother. And I'm not going to NASDAQ to ask them to send me samples. So that takes care of that.
Well, they're nice people. If you need a hookup, I know some people over there.
No. They're very nice. I'm not knocking NASDAQ, but I don't have any real relationships with anybody there. Just never did. But curiosity. Who is Raphael? No answer.
Must be muted.
Oh well. I was just trying to figure out who he was and see where he's from. Because
I want to say, I think Raphael is in Brazil. If he's the same one I'm thinking of, he does amazing, like Andy Anderson style work. It's sim process, but just beautiful portrait style prints. Let me look up, make sure it's the same guy. Talk to him a little bit. Yeah. This guy's awesome. I believe from looking at his feed, he does like instructional classes, and somebody had recommended him to me, like, why don't you show any of his prints? Like, well, we don't really know the Brazilian market. Brazil is its own world into itself. Like, it's so expensive for us to import inks into there. We just don't really play in that market. So on the screen printing side, I'm kind of disconnected from there.
Okay. So he just commented that his English is not so good. You know what? My Portuguese is not so good, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be coming on and chatting with us.
And my English is terrible.
And if
too.
you do have some shirts that you can show us, we'd love to see what some of the work that you do looks like.
Look him up. He's under Rowan Raphael on Instagram. Terrific, just warm skin tones, amazing prints.
Okay.
And then, you know what, for North American printers, check out his Instagram, because he's printing on a rotary table press. So it doesn't have heads that drop down. He can use as many screens as he wants. He's got the pin registration. It's great. I don't think a lot of Americans or North Americans have seen a rotary table press. It's really interesting. And then, you know, the first couple, I've watched comments, and I see a couple of people, you know, kind of seeing it for the first time, and they want to say something negative. I'm like, say all you want. He has endless colors he can add on that print. There's no limit. So really, really fun Instagram to check out.
Yeah, it's interesting when you leave the U.S. and you go even down to Central America, and you see some of the machinery that they have down there. I went to a shop many years ago, I think in El Salvador, or it's either El Salvador or one of the countries down there, Honduras probably. And it was a shop that was owned by an Asian company. And it's the biggest manual I've ever seen. I think it was like a 20 color manual. And the diameter was just insane. But what they would do is they would have like 6 different printers on there, each doing their own type of print. And they just would line up the number of colors so that everybody would shift at the same time. And so they could obviously do a 20 color job, but they really were doing more like 3 color work. And they would have 6 printers on there, each doing a 3 color job. And how they got it there, I mean, you had to see the diameter. The center wheel was just crazy. I mean, they had to ship it in from China, I believe, or I'm pretty sure from China. And the only reason they were down in Central America is because they were definitely catering to the U.S. market. But yeah, Brazil actually had one of the biggest shops in the world at one time. It was an MHM, all MHM, because it was easy for them to get that. and I forget the name of the company, but I think they had 50 machines and no dryers. They would just print on press and then flash and move
Off
on.
the press.
And I know when the Olympics were in, I forget which country, Brazil, the shirts were actually printed in Brazil and sent over to Europe. Interesting. I can't remember the name of the shop. I saw a photo of it once where they took the long shot. You couldn't even see the last machine.
I've noticed, and I don't know the reason behind this, and maybe it was just the bands I went to see. I've noticed that band merchandise in Europe is usually printed or seem to be printed in Brazil. Because I would buy a shirt for like an Irish band or an English band, like, hey, G is really large. I'm like, I understand that. That's cool. But they'd send all the work to Brazil for some reason.
Yeah. Raphael just made a comment that he'll be getting in touch with you. My electrician is getting ready to make a bunch of noise. See you soon.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
Charlie. No, that's me. I've got to get going. My electrician's
Tim,
here.
you go for it. I'll
guys
see
take
you.
care.
See you on Thursday.
Yes. And John, I'll be in touch. I want to talk to you about if you're going to be doing any of your local seminars or anything like that, where I know you used to, like at Midwest, you used to go out and do those. I just got big questions now that I'm onto the automatic, moving away from the manual as much as I have, using that for specialty little stuff. I'm just behind the eight ball trying to figure things out. The automatics is a great tool, but apparently I'm the tool using it because I'm having issues figuring things out. So,
well, I will tell
I'll be
you
in touch.
beyond that, the best person that I know that you could speak to about your press and how to like go from like 101 to 301 is Tony Palmer.
Lon.
Yeah, he'll be here in
Or
February.
Lon, yeah, but okay, perfect. Tony knows that machine inside and out. He's like their official guy for certain parts of the world. Every time I hang out with that guy, I learn more about MHMs.
Excellent. No, well, you all take care, and it's great seeing you. I'll see you.
Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah,
Thanks
goodbye.
so much. We've actually coming close to the end anyway. Raphael, sorry that your English isn't there, but certainly I would love to see some of your work as well. I'm always interested in seeing anything that looks really amazing. And from what John said, you're doing some pretty crazy stuff. So would love to see it.
Yeah, Raphael, send me some prints so I can show it on Instagram. I'm looking forward to it.
Terrific. Richard, any last words on your side?
No, I love John's work on Instagram. I wish he would not move the print as much when he's demonstrating. But that's style, John. That's style. When I see you in Long Beach, it doesn't take much to knock me over. So we could you could beat me up later for being, critical.
No, actually, you're not the first person who said that. And I get out of the habit of like, I try to put the video and then a couple stills close up, but I don't get paid to do this, like it's always on my spare time.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm kind of always half-assing it. I apologize, but I'm just trying to get the information out there. And like, I'll look back at my instructional slides that you pointed out, like on one of mine, the Atkins probe is turned correctly. I'm like, shit, I didn't catch that. I did a couple of years ago. Then Brett Bowden reached out to me and he's like, he's complimenting about some of the slides. But I think there was something on there. I just told him, like, they're not great. They're not perfect. I want to get the information out there. It's like, yeah, a lot of people spend too much time trying to make that information perfect before they get out there and just miss the point of getting it to the printers. So if there's anything I'm guilty of is just rushing things to the printers and maybe everything's not spelled correctly. Maybe the grammar's not, dead on, but just trying to help. Most people can figure it out, if they have questions, hit me up, let me know.
Most of the schemers or influencers that you see on Instagram, et cetera, they want people to ask the question. And so
I've noticed that
on purpose that they'll only do a 10-second thing and they'll say, yes, I want you to go see the John Luke, and they'll cut it off. And you got to listen 8 times and realize that they don't put anything in the text. There are no slides that you can stop and look at the picture. So everything's blurry. You got to watch it 11 times. That's what they want. I don't want you to be that guy.
No. And some of these guys have reached out to try to give me coaching tips because at first I was critical of some of these. So one guy did a puff print and he's hitting with a heat gun and he's hitting too much heat. So it's like little asteroids and blisters all over it.
Right.
And I said like probably the meanest thing I ever said on Instagram. I don't remember what it was, but just my comment was very aggressive. And he's like, hey, he messaged me directly. It's called, I got to look at the message said, it's called this, like you're trying to antagonize people into interacting with you. He's like, it's okay to put out bad information because it elicits responses and comments like, okay, well, that's not me. I'm not looking for people to have political discussions on my Instagram. Just share information, meet each other. Here's how to get yourself closer to the answer. That's it. But again, I'm not trying to or making any money off of mine. Those people they probably have that agenda.
My favorite
I'd
comment,
like to.
My favorite comment from an impression seminar that I have framed on the wall is, I wish he was as funny as he thinks he is.
I wish I was as smart as I think I am.
You are. Listen, I think being the traveling screenprinter, I think a lot of what you're doing is definitely really exciting and gets people motivated to do something more. And I don't know what your following is like, but I'm sure it's growing. Can you make money at it? I don't know squat about how to do any of that stuff. So I would be the last person on earth to even contemplate that. But, you definitely have a following, and you definitely have people who are always excited to see what the next shirt is going to look like.
Well,
Awesome,
the next shirt is going to be something with blister ink.
Of course, blister base.
Richard, I did like a dozen blister base prints, and then I even did one. I was like, I really hate this one. Like, I hate the feel of it. I'm sorry, Charlie. I hate this effect. But yeah, I love that blister base is covered.
Yeah, I love that you can squeeze the blister base and watch it come right back up.
Yeah.
As opposed to puff where you squeeze it and it's dead. And so, that to me, that was one of the things. And I think one of the things about blister base is you can get very, very creative with the imagery that you use it with, and really blow people away with that touchy-feely thing. You look at it, it looks like one thing, and then you touch it, it's like, whoa, there's a lot more there to it. In any event, we'll get off the blister base thing. Maybe Beth will watch this and get an idea that maybe she can put that back in for me.
I'll be done soon.
All right.
Charlie will start some hot trends in which we'll mention the blister base is going like mad, and that we better stock up.
Well,
it's gone.
If only they had it, I would. In any event, I know you need to go.
ETF. Raphael just mentioned ETF in the group. So
it's funny. ETF never used blister base. They used a lot of sponge puff and they used a lot of other things, but never blister base for whatever reason. But in any event, I think it was a little less controlled than they wanted control.
Was it soft density he used? Just layers of soft density?
Oh, they used, yeah. I'll show you where they did the different tapes. They did an electrical tape, a masking tape, and a variety of different tapes, including, what is it? As I get older, I think my head is losing it. I don't know. When you come to my place, I'll show you.
Okay, cool.
I think I may have the shirt, but I'm not sure. If I don't, I at least have the photos. Yeah, they would figure out how to use the different special effect things to create the different tapes, but all on one shot. And duct tape was the one, and they made it look just as though it were duct tape. So,
well, I look forward to seeing that, but I've got to give up the boardroom to the next group.
Yeah, you get out of here.
Thanks for having me on. Great seeing you, Richard.
Thanks so much for spending the
time,
gentlemen. And this will all go on my website. So, Richard, see you again in a couple of weeks. I need to figure out who's going to be on, but always a pleasure to have you. Raphael, hopefully you'll tune in some other times as well. We'd love to. I know you said you're sending a package to John of shirts, so looking forward to seeing what your work looks like. And if there's anything I can do to help out, you can hit my website, which is taubliebconsulting.com, but also you can email me at drprint, DRPRINT, at AOL.com.
All right, guys. Have a great one. Thanks for having me on.
Gentlemen, thanks so much. Great having all of you.